Hello, and welcome back to the Empower Her podcast. Today's episode was inspired by a client that I spoke with last week who got rejected from a company that she had been interviewing with that she was so excited about. And I talk about rejection all the time with my clients. Specifically, I work with a lot of, career coaching clients. So that's why it comes up a lot when we talk about, job searching and getting rejections. But I also want to talk about it in terms of rejection as a whole. So not just in job searching, but also in your personal life or in other aspects, what rejection means spiritually, strategically, and how we can really get through that. I think it's such an important topic. It's something that I find honestly holds people back. People are so scared of rejection, and I was one of them. Like 100%. I had to get over that as well. So, not only do I have the personal experience, but I've also helped clients do it. So I really, really want to talk about this topic, both from a strategic and a spiritual perspective, because I think we should be mixing both of those things and really how, we can get over that. So you've heard all the sayings, right? Rejection is redirection. The universe is closing one door and opening another. What is meant for you will find you, right? Like these are the very spiritual type of phrases that people say when we're talking about rejection. And I'm spiritual. I believe in this. I really do. And I want to share a couple of stories with you, personal stories of rejection, one that was in terms of job searching and another in terms of my personal life and how I really got through that and what that looked like. So, the first story is when I was working in corporate. There was a point, so I was in corporate for about 7 years at the same company. I moved up many times, but there was a point in about 5.5 years into it when I was done. Like I was so unhappy. There were so many issues. It was just a mess. So, what did I do? I started looking around at jobs. Not super intensely, but just if something that I really liked caught my eye, then I would apply. And I found this marketing job. I worked in marketing, and I found this marketing job at one of the top fashion companies. It was like one of the biggest fashion companies in Budapest at the time. And it's also a very well renowned and a world renowned fashion brand. And I've always loved fashion. I've always been really interested in it. I've never worked in fashion, but it was always something that I was really interested in. So I thought, oh my God, this is my dream job, literally my dream job. So I applied. I made it through 2 rounds. I did an HR interview and then I had this like homework assignment that I had to do. And after the homework assignment, I was rejected. And I was so upset because I felt like, okay, this is my only way out of the corporate job that I'm in, or at least my only way out where I would actually be happy, like such a good pivot, something so interesting, something that I could do, something that I would absolutely love. I literally was like, this is the only thing that's going to make me happy, right? And fast forward, that was like 5 years ago that this happened. If I would have gotten that job, let's say, I might not have ever quit corporate and started my own business. So when I look back now, I think, wow, the universe was saving me. They were pushing me towards something that I actually really wanted because at the end of the day, could I have been happy there if I, got into that fashion company? Maybe. But the issues that I had in corporate, now I can see them. The issues that I had in corporate probably wouldn't have changed just by moving to another company. Yeah, maybe it would have been a fresh start, new people. It would have given me some new energy. But at the end of the day, those base issues that I had with corporate, like having a rigid schedule, working the 9 to 5, not being my own boss, those things would not have changed, right? They would have stayed the same if I had just moved to another company. And now that I have my own business, now that I'm a coach full time and I don't work a 9 to 5, now I'm my happiest with this change, right? And this only happened because I didn't get that job. So rather than looking at that as, rejection, technically I was rejected, but also there was something better out there for me. And we'll talk about ego in a second and how that plays into it. Another example of rejection I had was in my last relationship. My last relationship was with someone who we were together for about 2 years on and off. I gave him everything. I loved him very much. I was an amazing girlfriend. He was not a great boyfriend. And I'm not dragging him. He said that to me. He knew that that was the case, right? He was not a great boyfriend. I was a people pleaser. I wanted to make him happy. I did everything that I could to do that. And what happened? He broke up with me the first time because we got back together, but that's a whole other discussion. So the first time he broke up with me, and I remember I wanted nothing more than for us to get back together. It was so painful. I would have done anything for us to get back together. I was praying, wishing. I wasn't like super spiritual back then. That's actually what like catapulted me to starting my spirituality journey, which again, if that breakup wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have done that and wouldn't be here where I am today. So, but I was so upset. It was so painful. I wanted us to be together, right? And I couldn't see past the fact that like he wasn't a good boyfriend. He didn't give me what I needed, right? Like he could not make me happy. That's why we broke up, because I was constantly unhappy and I was voicing my unhappiness towards the end of our relationship. I couldn't keep people pleasing, right? And I just think back to that of like now looking back of how down I was, right? And we did end up getting back together. We did end up getting back together. I feel like I manifested that. And when we did get back together, it wasn't the same. I felt like, dang, this is something I really wanted. And yet I don't know if I want it anymore, because I realized that I loved the idea of us being together. And we had a really tough kind of like, how we got together. So I felt like we had put so much effort into it and we just needed to make it work. We needed to prove it to everybody who thought we couldn't make it work. But really, he wasn't right for me and we weren't right together. And I thought I wanted it, but it wasn't really what I wanted. And had we not have broken up, had we not have gone through that, I wouldn't have gone through my spirituality journey. I wouldn't have found myself and I wouldn't be with the amazing person that I'm with today. My partner is the person I want to spend my life with, who I'm planning my life with. I know for a fact that I wouldn't have found him, or we wouldn't have gotten together, had I not gone through everything that I did with my ex in that relationship and everything that happened, right? And so that's all to say that sometimes what we want in the moment isn't actually what we want, right? We have these like intense attachments to jobs, to people, to places, right? And why do we have that? Is it because they feel comfortable? Is it because they make us feel good? Is it because they're familiar to us? Do we think those things are going to bring us happiness or bring us a certain social status? Because usually it won't. Because if something isn't aligned to our higher selves, then that thing won't actually make us feel better or do better at the end of the day. And rejection is tough. I know it's tough. I've gone through it. You've gone through it. We're going to continue to go through it. It's a blow to our ego. And this is where we come back to the ego. Is we talked about this. I did a podcast episode on the ego versus higher self. So if you want more info on that, definitely listen to that episode, because it's super important to understand our ego, why she's there, and the place that she has in our life, because she's really important. She's super important to who we are, but our ego shouldn't be the one making the decisions. And in that episode, I did a visualization exercise on how you can talk to your ego from your higher self. So definitely go check it out. But the goal is that our ego is there, right? She is there to help us. She thinks there's a threat, right? If we get a rejection, there's a threat. If we get a job rejection, the threat is, oh my God, I'm not good enough. Oh my God, I'm not going to have enough money. Oh my God, I can't leave my current position where I'm unhappy, right? That's a threat to our well being. Of course, it's not as big of a threat as our ego makes it when we really look at it logically, usually. But we have to work on calming our ego down, talking to our ego, telling her it's going to be okay, right? And we have to think of it from our higher self. And I know it's hard when you get a rejection the first few days. That's not the time to think about it. But eventually, it is going to be time to think about, okay, what did this situation teach us and how can we move on from this, right? How would my future self, the future version of me, who has the dream job, who has the money she wants, who has the car she wants, who has the relationship she wants, who's happy, right? How would they react to this situation? How would they react to this rejection? Right? So when we think of job searching, right, we can go back to that. Like my client, she had 3 rounds in the interview. She was super invested. She put a lot of time and energy into it, right? So of course she wanted it, right? She was super excited. She put so much energy into it. But on the side, and something you don't know, is we've also been talking about her starting her own business and quitting her job. So she has to decide what she wants. But let's just say, for the sake of this conversation, the universe is nudging her and saying, okay, you keep applying to these roles, but I want you to start your own business. You've said you wanted to start your own business. I know you're scared to start your own business, but I'm going to keep nudging you until you realize that you need to start your own business. And I don't know if this is the case, right? She has to figure that out. Everyone has to figure it out on their own. But this is an example of how it could manifest. That rejection is that person was meant to start their own business. They've been talking about it for years and years, and they're scared to do it, right? So we want to think about how we can grow and how we can learn from the rejection. What is this situation teaching us, right? And it could be as simple as maybe she needs to be better at interviewing, right? Maybe we need to have her practice interviewing more and practice selling herself better, right? That could be the case. Or it could be something as deep as learning to better handle rejection. Maybe that's your karma, is you have to learn to handle rejection. I've talked about this with a lot of my clients, and saying when they get a rejection and they feel stressed, I'm like, well, maybe you are constantly getting these rejections and you're getting this feedback because you need to learn to handle it better. You have to learn that it's not about you, and it's not about your character being diminished or you not being good enough. It's about something deeper. It's about you understanding what rejection is and being able to put rejection in its place, because it's not always that personal, right? So we have to try to understand what the rejection, regardless of the situation, is telling us, because there's always something to get out of these situations. Maybe not at first. It's hard to see. It's okay that your ego is very loud in the beginning. She's scared. It's okay. But eventually, we want to see what's going to happen. So if you do have a rejection in your life, whether it's job searching, a breakup, a friend breakup, whatever it is, here are some action steps you can take. Okay. So 3 main steps. The first is you need to allow yourself to feel the feelings, period. We don't want to bottle it up. We don't want to stuff it down. That's not what we're doing. But give yourself a time frame. Okay, so this is going to depend. If you get a job rejection, I would say 1 day. Give yourself 1 day to wallow, 1 day to feel bad for yourself, 1 day for your ego to be loud, and then you move on. A breakup, depending on how long you were together, can take longer. My breakup probably took me several months before I was able to fully get through it. It was more of a process rather than, from 1 day to the next. But it's going to depend on the situation, but give yourself a time frame. And by the way, just because you give yourself a time frame, let's say even for the job that you got, a rejection from, even if you give yourself a day, that's just a day to wallow, think about it, talk about it. Afterwards, it doesn't mean that from, the next time you wake up, you're going to be feeling great. It just means that you're deciding to move on. You're deciding to take steps to move on. Same with the breakup. Doesn't mean that you're healed all of a sudden after a month. It just means after a month, you're deciding to move on. You're deciding to start going out with your friends again, or you're deciding to start being more social, right? That's what we're talking about, is making the decision to move on. The second step, this is when you feel like you're ready to start moving on, is to reflect. And this can come in the form of journaling, meditation, visualization. Just really allow yourself to reflect on the good, the bad, the ugly, everything that happened. Free writing is really great. If you prefer a visualization and you get downloads, that's great. Whatever works for you. Some people like to go on walks, and that brings them a lot of clarity. It does for me. It's super helpful. So this will help you really to reprioritize and give the sort of rejection some redirection and see what can be done. This is going to be super important. And then the third thing, which you should be doing consistently throughout, is constant and consistent mindset and nervous system regulation work, right? Your ego is talking, the rejection is making you in fight, flight, or freeze, most likely. And nervous system work and mindset work are going to help you to regulate your body and your mind so that you don't spiral. Okay. You have to understand that this isn't a reflection of you as a person. Okay. Even if you could have done better, it's not a reflection of you as a person. It's a reflection of just your interviewing skills or whatever it is, right? Nervous system regulation helps show your body that it's going to be safe. And then the mindset work helps you gain back or continue to keep that confidence to know that you are great and moving forward. So these are the 3 steps that are pretty universal that you can use throughout. And at the end of the day, this isn't trying to minimize rejection. It's tough, right? Because our body believes that it's a threat, right? But for every no you receive, and this is more of the spiritual aspect, every no you receive, you are going to be closer to your yes. Okay? Every no you receive, you are going to be closer to your yes. So if you believe this and you take steps every day towards your higher self, you will understand that rejection is telling you to pivot or make a change. It's not a no or that you aren't good enough. It's just that maybe you need to reevaluate or pivot or go in another direction or try something new. That's all that means. And when you have this reframe, everything's going to change for you with the rejection. Everything is going to change. You're no longer going to feel as down about it. You're going to look at it as an opportunity because it is an opportunity, right? If one door closes, it means that you no longer go in that direction. You get to go in another direction. Those are opportunities for you. Those are ways to pivot. Those are ways to make you better and do better and get to the life you want. And that reframe is really, really going to help you. So I hope this was helpful. I hope it gave you a new perspective on rejection. And I just wanted to reiterate that I've opened coaching slots for July. So I have a 3-month container, minimum 3-month container if you want to work with me, one-to-one coaching. There's different options that we can talk about, and you can apply to work with me. I will leave the link in the show notes, but also on my website. And before you commit to anything, we will have a 20-minute complimentary call. I have that with everyone who applies to work with me, so we can talk about what options work best for you, time frames, all the good stuff. So definitely apply to work with me if you're ready to make massive, massive changes, work on rejection, all the things. And of course, you can always reach out to me if you have any questions. I hope y'all have an amazing, fabulous week, and I'll catch you in the next episode.